What's going on, guys? My name is Kdub, also known as Crypto Zombie, and we are excited to welcome you to another episode of Token Tank. Here at the Token Tank, we invite a promising blockchain and crypto project to pitch or update their project to our panel of experts. Our panelists are focused solely on asking great questions to project founders so that you, our valued viewers, can make your own crypto calls. Today's panelists include CryptoCandor, the leading lady of candid conversations in crypto, the Crypto Lark, the creator of New Zealand's top crypto channel. You can Google that, by the way. And of course, our guest of the night, Shill Nye, the mysterious masked crypto man. And I must say, I am extremely excited to have Phil Zamani from Aergo with us today. Phil, welcome to the Token Tank.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't we just kick things off and just basically start with the elevator pitch? What exactly is Aergo?
Hi. So Aergo is a platform that combines the best of hybrid blockchains with software development built for enterprises to allow businesses to use their data to create new apps, services, or ecosystem where they want to share data in a supply chain or with others. So it's a hybrid of blockchain and cloud computing all mixed together, built on open source technologies.
All right, thank you.
Ding.
Awesome. Simple solution. So specifically right off the bat here is you guys are advertising yourself as the 4th generation block.
Yeah.
And still in the process of seeing 3rd generation blockchains in the ecosystem being developed. So what does it actually mean for you guys to be building a 4th generation blockchain, and what are kind of the biggest barriers that you're facing right now?
Sure. Great question. So what we mean by 4th generation is actually 4 elements that have been combined for the first time in the blockchain world. Firstly, it's a hybrid blockchain architecture that provides uses both public and private and sidechains. So that's, others are doing that as well. But what's very unique about BlockO's contribution and what Aergo does, we're combining what you would normally see with software developers in large companies around cloud computing. We're bringing in the so-called serverless microservices-based design into the environment, and everything we're doing is purely open source technology, open source licensing, open source business model, and open source ecosystem. And the 4th is actually one of the unique things that we bring is actual real expertise. We've been doing this for 4 years with real customers in production, and that expertise we're codifying in what we call blueprints. So 4th generation means hybrid blockchain, serverless computing cloud, open source mantra, and real expertise with real customers codified in blueprints for customers.
Very
awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. And you guys
go ahead.
Didn't mean to interrupt that. Yeah. So you guys are focused on enterprises.
Like
that. Like what's the solution for those enterprises?
Yeah, so the solution is if you want to deploy an application at scale and use blockchain, it's not just about where you store the data and how you store the data. You've really got to make sure these systems work within existing IT systems. Many POCs in the world never get deployed because they ignore the fact that businesses have existing IT systems. So being able to integrate those into the so-called IT backplane is often the hardest thing with blockchain. It's not about performance, it's not about TPS, it's about making a system work end-to-end and meet the performance and security needs of enterprise customers.
It's amazing that a lot of these blockchain projects come out and think, well, we're just going to replace all of the software that you've spent all this money buying and all this time training your staff to use. It's working with instead of trying to totally replace, I think, is a winning strategy. Now, I wanted to get on this idea of parallel processing. So you're going to be doing parallel processing via your side chains. Can you explain a little bit how this works, but also why do you think that this is a superior method for scalability? Why not go with sharding or something like that, for example, or off-chain scaling solutions?
Yeah, it's a great question. There are many different terminologies used pretty much for the same thing. Fundamentally, with blockchains, you really have to balance 2 things, trust versus real performance and governance. If you want pure trust, you go for a public blockchain. But if you really need to govern your architecture because you're a government or because of GDPR privacy issues, you want some level of control. So hence you need to mix the 2 together. Now, when you mix the 2 together, you've got to make them work together. And you often have high-performance private chains working very fast with slower but much more trusted public chains. And the ability to bring these together needs what's called sidechain technology or plasma technologies. In general, the simple description is sidechain technology or plasma just allows 2 different speeds or different types of architectures to coexist and communicate when they need to communicate. So sidechains is the way to bring private and public chains together to meet both the trust element you get and innovation in a public chain, but also the performance and governance you need in a private chain.
Phil, when you speak about these chains, like, are you referring to yourself as a blockchain as a service, or would you consider yourself more software as a service? Like, in other words, if I wanted my own blockchain, do I essentially fork or duplicate the Argo chain, or do I, for my own interoperable chain, or do I have to actually build my dApps directly on the Argo main chain?
Good question, Kdub.
It's a great question. So it's all of the above. The truth is, you can either build your apps on a public Ergo chain and deploy them completely in a public chain. But if you want to get the highest performance, or you need to work with another company that has their own architecture, you would create sidechain technology. You could do all of that within Ergo. You could have multiple chains built from the same technology. And that would actually be the optimum for us, and for clients, it's easier. But we recognize many companies will have their own blockchains as well. So we're building technology that allows you to integrate the two architectures together. In simple words, you can run everything in a public chain, but if you want to mix with customers who have their own private chains, you would need a side chain. Forking is a complex word. In effect, forking simplistic means you split the code and can you bring it back together? And forking is a very complex thing to do well. And the best examples of where forking works really well and it's well accepted is in the Linux community. Linux is well known for being able to fork and merge, and it's all to do with the methodology you use to write the software and merge the technology, whether that's software or blocks or anything else in the architecture. We think we know how to do that. This is why we're taking a bit of time to ship our software to make sure we get it absolutely right before we actually allow people to design on this paradigm.
And this is even if the other chains, for example, because you guys are DPoS. That's what you've chosen to use. And we can go into why you chose to use that in just a minute. But I wanted to ask, for example, if another chain decided to use a different consensus mechanism, which you guys do offer that wouldn't affect interoperability, right? Wouldn't have any effect? Or
well, it'll have an effect. It's more complicated. It always has an effect. Anyone who tells you it won't have an effect doesn't know what they're talking about. It always has an effect. Really, the question is, what's the complexity needed? With all these chains, what people don't realize, when people talk about chains communicating with each other, they're actually not transferring data. What they're doing is they're freezing an asset on one chain and allowing the same asset to appear on the other chain, the same token. So these so-called swaps never really happen. What happens is communication. Data is not transferred from one chain to other. It's in effect an illusion, but it's a clever illusion, because if you transfer data across, you would never get the throughput and the performance. So the trick is, how do you manage the different blocks of different data sets from one architecture to another and do it quite elegantly? Doing it elegantly and easily is very, very complex. That's why people have criticized us for not shipping early. Well, the truth is, we've had this technology in use for 4 years, but now we're trying to make it easier for the mass market to use. This technology has been tested with large banks and other clients in Korea, but now we're trying to make this simpler. Doing simple is very, very hard.
So how will you guys be choosing the delegates for your system?
Yeah, so we have around 23 block providers in the system. So they'll get voted by the community and also by a qualification sheet. A qualification sheet checks 3 things. Number one, technically, they know what they're doing. They either have come from this background, they've run servers, they've run hosted business applications before. Second is they've got the security credentials that are needed for businesses to really trust their technology. And third, they've got to play fair with the community. They've got to stake their tokens, and they've got to be good actors. So I think you mentioned earlier delegated proof of stake. Well, actually, it's a voting system. We're building a voting system around this. So not only the block providers can monitor each other to make sure they're good actors, the community itself, anybody with a token, can vote with their tokens. So we're trying to avoid the situation where somebody gets too much so-called power and tries to control the network. This system is going to be trying to autonomic into the governance, so it's a good actor-based system. And again, doing that is not easy. We're trying to refine that model before we ship this out.
Now, in terms of actually, I guess, getting that list together of security clearances and things like that, that'll come down to the Argo Foundation, I imagine, to actually do this vetting of these projects, and then that list of cleared nodes, essentially, will be presented to the community to vote on as delegates. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct, but there is another element we haven't really explained this. One of the main target block producers and if you like, blockchain holders in terms of the database, we believe will be telcos, hosting providers, telcos. Telcos missed the opportunity to compete with Amazon and Bluemix and IBM. They were too late to market. But most telcos have one big advantage: they're hyper-local. The data stays in their country, and the fabric that they use to communicate is high speed. So many telcos have expressed an interest to get into the blockchain world. We're working with them to say, look, you could become a block producer. You could be a node provider for the Aergo Foundation and provide your customers not only the stability, but also the service that they need to run their chains. Many of these chains will be a hybrid of public and private. Many companies will not be able to run their own private chains. It's just too complex. So look for a partner, and a telco is a great partner. So we're actually working with telcos to define a model by which we give them a choice to become a hosting provider. It's not just telcos, it's any company that knows how to run software at scale.
So you're telling me I'm going to get Vodafone calling me up saying, hey, would you like a blockchain for your business?
Well, we would love that to happen. Whether that will happen the next year or so, we don't know. But we do believe telcos will start offering services. They face a real challenge where the pipes they're building are being dominated by Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Alibaba, and they cannot extract enough value from that pipe. The way you can extract value is by providing services. If you can provide an application service to your businesses because they're running on your fabric and hosting your data center, it gives them a really good chance. So many telcos are certainly realizing blockchain might be a way to animate and to enlighten their cloud infrastructure. So we're starting to work with a few of those around the world. Again, we're doing very cautiously. You always hear me say we go slow. We don't run. We go slow to make things work. So we're often accused of being too slow. Well, my argument to that is things we ship work. So we'd rather go slow and make things work rather than rush and just do white papers.
Yeah, and I mean, that's fair considering this space is definitely full of people trying to get the first mover advantage, which doesn't always necessarily project. So what other tools do you guys have planned for your developers to give your blockchain an upper hand compared to your competitors?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we were lucky in that the team behind Aergo has spent 3 or 4 years building a so-called software development kit. It's a tool chain that allows you to program smart contracts, but also configure the actual blockchain itself. We've done that now with over 23 clients. We have many, many users. And what we've established is that many of the customers who want to use blockchain do not want to learn new languages like Solidity. They want to code in Java, sometimes in C. Many of them use SQL. So we've actually spent time figuring out what parts of SQL can be applied to smart contract development. We've developed a SQL-like technology that we're going to release soon as part of an SDK that will unlock the potential for mass market developers, database administrators to start writing smart contracts for a blockchain. There are about 8 million SQL developers around the world. There's less than 100,000 Solidity users around the world. So we think that's a smart thing. The other thing we're doing is, as part of the SDK, we're codifying the know-how we've gained from clients in a so-called blueprint, like a menu. How do you do an identity management system? How do you do single sign-on? How do you do document retrieval and timestamping? We're trying to do those so within weeks you can build a system rather than 6 months. And that's part of the value add we want to bring into the know-how within Aergo.
That's really interesting. So, I see that you're already compatible with Ethereum virtual machine, right? Now, as far as like interoperability, are you talking only things that would be ERC20 related or things Argo related, or do you see interoperability between other native blockchains? Because I know that's a really difficult task.
Yeah, we will be interoperable up to a point, because if you spend your life trying to become interoperable, you're spending your life building glue between systems. But what people forget, if you make systems interoperable, you have to recognize the systems move on. So interoperability is almost like a snapshot. So the trick is to be interoperable with the main platforms. So we will be interoperable with Ethereum. We came from that background. We use the EVM from Ethereum as part of our core technology. We understand that technology. We like the technology here. So we will be compatible with ERC20. We'll have our own native token, and we'll support a number of blockchains selectively. We're not going to say we'll support all of them, because that's just not practical.
Is your token sale ERC20 or straight native?
ERC20.
Okay.
So what will be the exact function of your token then? What's going to give it value?
Yeah, so token economics is quite a complex thing to explain, but I'll try to distill this into simple things. There are 3 usages for the token. Firstly, in the public chain, most things are free. Yes, most things that a developer will use are free within the chain. But when they start accessing data and doing more compute-intensive tasks, they will have a form of gas. So there'll be a native gas-type model for running smart contracts where you're accessing extra CPU or storage. So it's a typical gas model with Ethereum, but it's not for everything. It's a generous model. Not everything is metered. to make it economically viable. The second thing is the block producers will stake tokens to be able to provide a service to users. So if you're a block producer and running the underlying architecture, or you're a cloud infrastructure provider that offers extra compute power for a customer who wants to run their sidechain on a cloud infrastructure, they will stake or use tokens as the unit of currency for that service. And the third, which we haven't talked about, is what will happen probably 4 or 5 years down the line. Once these blockchains get deployed in enterprises, whether that's Ethereum or Ergo or something else, there will always be a need for support. So BlockO is a company that developed the core technology. BlockO understands how to support customers on a one-on-one basis. What will happen in the future, as these blockchains get deployed, there will be a need for security and maintenance from somebody here. That security and maintenance will be paid for in tokens. So in short, in the future, when people deploy enterprise-grade Ergo platforms, they will likely contract with BlockO or somebody else to provide support, and that support will be paid for in tokens.
Very
cool. Talk about BlockO for 1 second, and I'm interested. What is the relationship between?
Yeah,
obviously they have some strong times, and what is what control does BlockO have over Ergo as well?
Yeah, so BlockO is in effect the genesis of the Ergo core technology. So in effect, BlockO is a Korean company, been doing blockchain for 4 years as a service to clients. Their core technology is called CoinStack. CoinStack is a hybrid of the Bitcoin protocol and the Ethereum VM and some new technology we built on top of that. It's a tool chain. We've been using that for 4 years and deploying it and supporting it. That technology has been gifted to an open source foundation based in Hong Kong called Ergo. It's open source, so it will attract more developers. So the technology has been contributing, and we develop it within Ergo. Ergo then decides who it works with to promote and develop the technology. And right now, the only company developing the technology is BlockO. So BlockO is in effect a strategic technology provider for the foundation. It contributes its code and its skills to help the genesis. Thereafter, we will look to attract more developers and other companies to develop the technology. If any blockchain is developed by one company alone, I can guarantee you one thing: it will not survive very long. So you need to build an ecosystem. The control element is twofold. One is it has some level of control because it is the originator of the technology. So for the short period of time, we do rely on BlockO because BlockO developed the technology here. But as it becomes open source, it's less reliant on one vendor. The second thing is, as we deploy the architecture later this year, BlockO will become the block provider until we reach a certain threshold. So BlockO will run the underlying architecture for the public chain until we receive 2 million blocks. Thereafter, we will look for other partners. So we'll spread this out. So see BlockO as being the originator and the stabilizer for the architecture. The benefit BlockO gets, as Ergo gets deployed and used, they will acquire many customers who need support. So BlockO's interest is to become the support organization. Ergo's interest is to make the platform pervasive.
Yeah, because I was interested. Yeah, no, that was a great answer. But I was also interested as well. Say I'm a customer right now and I'm currently using CoinStack, right? Why would I want to switch to Ergo? Is there any incentive? Are you going to be promoting this to your existing customer base?
Yeah. So firstly, you don't have to switch. If your technology is working fine today, don't switch unless you need to do an upgrade. In fact, last Friday, we were invited into one of our large clients, BlockO clients in Korea. It's called Shinhan Bank. It's the Bank of America of Korea. They've been using our technology for 3 years for identity management, and also we've developed a coupon system, a reward system for their credit card users. They did a presentation to their investors. It was an analyst day where they wanted to showcase inward investment in Korea in terms of blockchain. We were honored. I had the opportunity to talk about what we were doing. And what we presented was BlockO as the company deploying the service for the bank, but Ergo as the next generation. And the way it was positioned was that BlockO needs this technology to become global. Other than Samsung, not many people know many technology companies out of Korea. So the technology needs to be global. It needs to attract a global user base, a global application base, a global developer base. So we presented Ergo as the next version of BlockO technology, but on an industrial scale. And it went down very, very well. So most customers get this. All they care about is, will the technology be compatible? Will the applications that were developed on CoinStack work on Ergo? And we're guaranteeing for existing customers upwards compatibility in the API. And doing that is not easy. It delays things, but we'd rather keep and honor our existing relationships rather than just move on to next clients. So look at Ergo as being the BlockO technology supercharged on a global scale.
I like it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. You said that your BlockO is mostly focused in Korea. So are you going to be rolling this out mostly to Korea to begin with, or what's the plan with that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the engineering
especially
team,
with, now we already have Icon and these other ones that have come out as well too. So there is that competition, just to add on what Nye said.
Sure. So the answer is we will have two teams globally, an R&D team and a business development team to support customers and app developers. So I'm glad to announce that the engineering team in BlockO has doubled in size in the last 3 months. So we no longer are relying on Korea. We have a development team in Berlin, in London, and in fact in Brazil. So we have a distributed team. We will hire great developers anywhere in the world, whether he or she wants to work from home or a WeWork office. We will hire developers anywhere we can find them. Second is we're deploying business teams in the regions where we want to focus for the next 2 years. Those regions are Korea, China, UK, Germany, and North America later next year. We're deploying real teams. I have a bit of an advantage. 20 years ago, I did this once before with Red Hat. I had to establish Red Hat's global business. And the way you do that is by deploying specialist teams country by country until you get reference clients. So the focus for us is to get the technology out, get developers to look at the code, use the code, start developing apps and finding real customers who want to really deploy this technology. But we'll do it stage by stage. So in answer, we will deploy R&D anywhere in the world, but the business development teams will be deployed in the major target markets over the next 2 years.
Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about the actual components of the project. Aergo Hub, what would be someone's incentive to use that over, say, like Amazon Web Services?
Yeah, so Amazon Web Services is a great architecture. It's probably the de facto standard here. What Aergo Hub is trying to do is to say, if you're an app developer and you build an app, you probably have one customer in mind because you've contracted with that customer. Well, why not make it available to many, many customers? And why not make it available for any customer to deploy where they want to develop this? So Aergo Hub is in effect a deployment engine. It's like AWS. AWS deploys to AWS servers in AWS farms. Aergo Hub deploys to any server the customer wants that meets their security standard. It's an open gateway to, in effect, what we call serverless cloud.
Are you concerned with your competition in this space? Because I feel like, cloud computing and data is such a hot product now as far as ICOs go. Is that a concern for you at all in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a concern. In fact, having competition is great because it validates there's a possible need for the technology. When people ask us who our competitor is, it's none of the ones you think. It's not the Ethereums or the EOS of this world, although we often get compared with EOS and others.
Some people might even say Hashgraph too recently.
Yeah, I was thinking Hashgraph.
Yeah, there are many great companies out there, great ideas. The trick is who's going to get the customers and the developers. So really, today, our main competitor is IBM. And we do believe, generally, we do believe after IBM, this team has the most enterprise blockchains with real users around the world. We have over 25 million endpoints managed on 23 blockchains built by the BlockO team. We have the most in production systems around the world, which proves two things. One is we don't just do POCs, we do real business deployments. And the only company doing that today at scale is IBM. And it's a tall order to say, how can we compete with IBM? But it's exactly the same dynamic with 1998 when Red Hat emerged to compete with IBM and HP. It's the same dynamic. They say history doesn't repeat itself, but in tech, it sure rhymes. You'll always have the big players and then some newcomers. We're the new kids on the block. And in fact, we hope we can become as successful as Red Hat and Linux for enterprise blockchain. That's our kind of mantra.
So Phil, if you guys already have this existing technology with CoinStack, and you're having clearly a token sale, you're raising funds, what is the major focus of the Aergo going to be after this token generation event over, say, the next year? What are you actually going to be doing, considering you already have the tech built out?
Yeah, and that's probably one of the best questions asked today. Sorry for the rest of the team. We've deployed everything so far in private chains for banks, private chains for automotive companies like Kia, Hyundai, private chains for Samsung themselves. The trick is to deploy a private and a public chain together. So Aergo is bridging this gap. Whilst others are talking about interoperability from one chain to another, we're providing a whole architecture where you can do everything in one code base. So Aergo's real focus is to enable this so-called sidechain capability, this what's called tier N model, where you can have private and public chains. You always want a public chain for trust. But until you get a quantum computer deployed or the speed of light reduces, you will always need private implementations. And this is the trick. The trick is to make it all work together. So our technology is not always disruptive. It's not always sexy technology. We're taking the best of what exists today, the best of what is possible today, and what is likely to happen, and bring a hybrid. When the iPhone came out around 15 years ago, what people didn't realize, 95% of the tech was developed 20 years ago. What they did, which was really smart, was the packaging, the whole UI, and the simplicity. Apple succeeded because of simplicity, and it was adopted really well. And that is the hardest thing to do. If we can make this technology work together and make it easy for the mass market, we will get adoption. That's our hope, and that's our focus. But it takes time, money, and people, hence why we've done the raise.
Now, I want to, I saw on your Twitter that you do have the first dApp that's already being planned for Aergo, and that's Zipper, Z-P-E-R. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and why that, you know, is going to be, you guys kind of put them forward as the first dApp coming on Argo?
Well, it's the first one because the first one that's pretty much ready. But let's not talk about one. Let's talk about 10 dApps. We're developing 10 dApps for Ergo. So we're not waiting for an ecosystem to emerge. We're putting money behind our own mouth. We're developing our own dApps for Ergo. And very soon, we'll announce some exciting new technology. So our roadmap is very clear in terms of our testnet and our mainnet. What we haven't talked about is what apps we're developing. So we're keeping those under apps. Very soon, you'll hear some new technology we're developing, some quite cool technology. I'll give you a hint. You may have all have heard of CryptoKitties. So why am I mentioning CryptoKitties in the context of a and what am I talking about games in the context of a business discussion? Well, watch this space. It's called Captain Aergo, and it's an interesting project that will be coming out very soon.
That's so crazy. It's so crazy that I said you not read my mind, but I feel like you've been watching my videos this past week because we've been talking about exactly what you're saying, non-fungible assets, blockchain gaming. I've been heavily looking into the space, especially the past few weeks. It's so weird that you say that because I think that personally, that's going to be that kind of road to adoption because, you know, it's difficult to get people to switch over from what they're comfortable for using. So what you got to do is give them something that they're comfortable, but then underneath you slide in the blockchain and then they don't even know they're using it. And that's how you guys are giving me the chance to become, you're the first people who interview me like this. So I'll give you an exclusive. If you like Marvel Comics, you like retro, watch this space. We've just hired the top development team in Korea for games, has been hired by BlockO to develop a cool game to do two things. One is to prove the scalability and unbreakability, we hope, of our platform. It will not break like Ethereum broke with a kiddie game called CryptoKitties. A second is it may create a fan base of looking at how this technology can be used to do very scalable problems. And, you know, we often say that what's lacking in enterprise is business applications, but actually what people need to see is proof it works. And there's no better way to show a system scales by getting millions of potential users playing with this game. That's our objective. So you've heard it first. Captain Aergo was first announced on this channel.
Cool.
Very cool. I look forward to it.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's like
so,
said, I mean, gaming is such an exciting part of everything that's coming together here at the blockchain space.
And for CryptoCandor as well, I'd like to say that over 8 of the developers are girls. And
that's awesome.
Designers. So it's got to have a soft, very logical feel. So we're quite proud. We have, in fact, we have over 35% of our team are females, and we want to have many developers in our team. There's so much demand for getting into blockchain. We're doing some training for young developers around the world to attract some young people into this market as well. We're also hiring some of the most experienced open source developers, open source, blockchain, and young developers. We really want to build a vibrant community around Aergo.
Oh, that's awesome.
Guys, just keeping an eye on the time here. I think we have time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions. I want to follow up on the Argo Marketplace. So this is essentially your cloud computing service. Now, cloud computing is already a very busy space, so why focus on this as well? Why not just try and, you know, deliver other services as well, instead of trying to compete in the blockchain cloud computing area? Yeah,
well, actually, it's not that, and we've done a really poor job explaining it. So it's good to give me a chance to change this. So the marketplace, consider it like iTunes. If you're an app developer and you build a great app, let's say you develop an enterprise apps that allows a manufacturing company to check the provenance of their goods as they go through the supply chain. Why just do it for one customer? Why not make it available for any customer who has a similar problem? So the marketplace is, in effect, a hub for the DApp developers to showcase their technology. What we will do is allow the developer to put it into a marketplace with the wrapper code to allow others to test this and try this out. So we're actually trying to make sure that if you go to the effort of developing a DApp on Aergo for a certain use case, that use case probably can be used by many, many other clients. But how does that app developer get their brand out there? Their brand, if it's through the Aergo Foundation, there's a better chance we'll open up the surface area for these DApp developers to take advantage of what they developed and allow other customers to look at this. So I mentioned twice before blueprints. Blueprints are the way to do things quickly. We plan to use blueprints with DApp developers to make it easy for them to showcase their technology. So it's really a showcase for DApp developers, not for us.
Cool. Yeah, I noticed you guys are heavily focused on the developers. You stressed that at least 4 or 5 times during this. So you guys are very focused on getting people to action it. That seems to be a primary of concern of yours. So
correct, and hence why we are all open source. Most developers want to feel comfortable that the technology that they develop is not controlled by one entity. And there's no better way than doing that than in an open source foundation. Hence why Aergo is an open source foundation.
Excellent, excellent.
Very
so,
cool.
I mean, I guess that about wraps it up. Everybody, we good? I mean, you answered more information than I even anticipated on asking, Phil. So
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. So yeah, thanks again. So this wraps up the episode of Aergo with Phil. So thank you so much again. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks a lot. Go Aergo.
Go Aergo. Yes. All right, guys. So what does everybody think of Aergo?
Love it. Totally
Very impressed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Extremely impressed.
That's it. We're done. Okay, we're done.
No, I mean, I guess what I like the most is how much he really weighed on the importance of the developers and kind of putting their money where their mouth is and building on their own economy, right? And like wanting to have dApps and wanting to have all this stuff that's going to support the growth of the project in itself. So instead of waiting for other people to build on it, they are so pro project and they feel so strongly about what they've created that they're like, whatever, we're just going to build our own ecosystem. And I think that's fantastic. I think that speaks volumes about his confidence, at least if nothing else, in the project.
It's absolutely top tier, and it's really great. But at the same time, you have to keep it real that they're kind of late to the party. And yes, they do have already great implementations with lots of partners and all this stuff. But so did Icon, and Icon's a year ahead already. Icon's already got a mainnet and people building on top of it. You know, so and they're offering a very, very similar package when it comes down to it. They're saying, hey, you can have a permissioned blockchain on the side, and you can access our public chain to get, you know, value out to the world. So there's a lot of competition in that particular niche, and that's something to keep in mind. And I feel like Aergo is going to be one of the main competitors in that space, but it is a very competitive space, nevertheless.
Agreed,
Yes.
agreed. And even beyond that, like even beyond the technology of it, the team is really. And first off, he was one of the most prepared people I've ever talked to. You know, I go was like, and he knew every single question, nothing, and beyond like anything that I ever expected. And the fact that they have BlockO representing them now, I don't BlockO, I haven't done BlockO, shared what I have seen. It seems like they've got some good backing.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, for everybody watching, by the way, I just want to kind of stick up for you, Nye. You are in a location that has kind of bad internet, but I totally agree with you, man. I got the whole gist of what you were saying. I mean, it's really incredible when you can sit down and actually talk to a CEO who understands the tech at that level. There's a lot of times that, you know, because they assume like you're going to do an interview, so let's give them the CEO. And you'd be surprised how many CEOs I talk to, or some interviews I've never even published, because I was almost embarrassed that this individual doesn't even understand the inner workings of their own project.
Yep. Yeah, it's
100%.
absolutely crazy.
100%.
I've seen those too, and yeah. It's not really people.
Yeah.
All right. One other thing too, I just want to mention about BlockO, and I know we didn't get totally into it, and we were kind of mentioning it, but man, BlockO's partnerships are massive. Like, they're partnered up like Hyundai Motors and stuff. That's not a guarantee, and I know that Phil was kind of saying, well, yeah, some of our BlockO partners are looking to use Aergo, right? And they're very keen on it. Not to say Hyundai Motors is going to get on board immediately and start using, you know, the Aergo public chain, but BlockO's massive for anybody who hasn't actually looked into it. Like, they've got huge partnerships with, you know, millions of users you know, using that technology that's been developed by their partners. So it's a very, very serious company, and that's something that I think is definitely worth underlining here. And what part of what makes it so exciting to realize it's not just some, you know, dudes in a garage with a white paper and a dream. Like, this is like a serious professional company, and it puts it right up there. It reminds me a lot of Icon. I've got kind of that similar vibe with it.
Me too. That's which, and you guys know how I feel about Icon. I mean, I love the pre-establishedness to it. Like, they're not just coming. This isn't a white paper. This is a project that they've already had. It's already running. They have partnerships. They have connections. And I love the fact that he even brought up. I mean, it was just like, everything he was saying is what I've been thinking for the past 2 weeks with adoption, non-fungibles, blockchain gaming, and then comparing yourself to IBM even. I mean, that to me was just like, you got to have some cojones to say that, you know? And wow. Yeah.
Damn straight. Thinking the same thing. Thinking the same.
Damn straight. Now, one of the other unfortunate things I did want to point out, we didn't actually dig into this with Phil, but they have announced their token distribution event, and basically there is no public sale. So there's going to be a certain amount of contributors, you know, people who kind of like bounty sort of stuff, whatever. They're going to get a certain amount of tokens, and there was a large sale to private investors, largest sale to private investors. So unfortunately for everyone watching out there in TV land, you're going to have to watch for this one on the exchanges. I don't think there's going to be an opportunity for 99% of the general public to actually be able to participate in the token distribution event. So just a downer note to finish with, perhaps, but that's the reality of the situation for an exciting project.
Yeah. It seems to be happening a lot with those really top-tier projects, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, it costs millions of dollars and is an absolute legal nightmare trying to run an ICO. So I can kind of understand why they go this route, but it's unfortunate because it's nice to get those tokens into a lot of hands.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a confusing space right now, even with the whole people, you know, kind of jumping over to the whole STO space, kind of not feeling comfortable with the traditional ICOs. I mean, so I'm honestly not surprised to hear this. So yeah, not financial advice. Keep an eye on it. If it dips, you know, do your thing. I don't know. You know how it goes, guys. Can't really say. So
definitely one that I'm keen on. This is
so we like it. Everyone likes this one. Wow.
Yeah, I like it.
Wow, I have to say, me too. And I've been very skeptical to really give like a yes or no type opinion on a token tank. But this is, in my opinion, with the exception of the existing projects we've spoken to, the ones that are already, you know, post ICO. Yeah, I think that for me personally, so far, this is my favorite project. But you know, don't listen to me. I'm just a guy on the internet, right, Lark?
That's right, man. Just dudes on the internet talking about cryptocurrencies.
So, anyone else? Any last words before we go?
Dude, I just want to say I agree 100%. And you know, this some of the recent projects like Quark Chain and Icon and things who had just massive hype when they were in their private sale phase, you know, and came out and everybody knows what they did. But I agree with you, man. We're just dudes on the internet. Like I wear a mask. Why are you listening to me?
And honestly, no one's even really hyping this project right now. I mean, I don't see people running around screaming Argo, you know. I mean, so it's actually, I mean, to me, that's almost better. I kind of like the guys that just keep their head down and just focus on the actual, you know, execution and tech. So, all right. Thank you so much, everyone. Panelists, viewers, you guys are awesome. So thanks again for joining us on another episode of Token Tank. Obviously, most important is what you think. So please be sure to drop your comments below. And of course, do not forget to check out our next episode of Token Tank. Until next time, see you guys later.